Okay, we're on the air. Look, I'm going to make it short and sweet today. The majority of you people, you Christians especially, are not going to like it. But let me tell you the simple uh, idea of what's going on in Israel today against Hamas. Look, the whole thing revolves around that the most of the Jewish people, or call themselves Jewish, are really not Semitic. They're out of, and they'll admit it. They'll admit it if you watch the movie uh, Exodus with a number of noted actors. Watch the whole thing all the way through. After World War II, the Jews said, "Hey, look, we're not well liked. We've taken it in the shorts. Let's go back to what they thought was Israel." Now, most of these people had never been to Israel. Um, they were out of Sino-Soviet Russia, Poland, what was left of the Jewish people in Germany, and they said, "Let's go back to Palestine and take it back. It's our land, as much as we know. But let's leave it there for who really is supposed to be in that particular God-forsaken land." Don't forget, Mark Twain, Samuel Gompers, was there in the 1800s, and he says, "This place is dead. There's nothing here. There's nothing to claim." And it was part of the Ottoman Empire until the British came in. Now, I won't deny that I'm what they call an Anglo-Israelite. I believe that the lost 10 tribes of Israel were taken captive by Assyria. And when Assyria wasn't doing that well, when the Babylonians were putting the pressure on, they probably got together with Israel and they said, "Let's take off." So the combined effort of the what was left over with the Assyrians that knew what was going on, and the captive Israelites, which never did. They were a nomadic people by that time. They referred to as the Scythians. If you look up the Scythians, matter of fact, I used to have a National Geographic's May of 1977, I think, and they freely admit that the Scythian, see, it's easy for me to say, the Scythians, that's a Shilabeth, that's in the Bible too. That's when one of the tribes couldn't pronounce the th. Uh, they took off. They went to Europe, which Europe was basically a wasteland, forested. There were the Teutonic tribes there, but I speak uh, good German, and rarely will a German tell you where they got the term Deutsche. They call themselves Deutsch, and they don't know where it comes from. It's just there. And anyway, let's say that the 10 lost tribes of Israel did migrate up into Western Europe, and they today are most of the Christian democracies and republics of Europe. I'll leave it at that. If they had any stragglers, then the Mongolians came along and chased them, and the Attila the Hun chased the rest of them up into Europe. So these people, they were Israelites, but they were not Judah. The majority of them were not Judeans. The Judeans met the wrath of God in about 150 years later when they were sent packing to Babylonia. Now, in Babylonia, they stayed there for what? 70 years, just as Daniel had found out. But while they were there, of course, they developed a slang, and they developed certain additional rabbinical ideas about what the law of God was, and they brought all that back with them under Ezra and Nehemiah. But while they were gone, uh, Saul, which was the brother of Jacob, he's rather screwed up. God didn't like him and still doesn't like him or his descendants. He married a couple Canaanite women, and they're an interesting lot. They used to run Petra. Herod the Great was a he wasn't an Israeli. He wasn't a Jew, but he made a deal with Mark Antony. You loan me a couple of legions, and we'll jump on the area and we'll take it over, and we'll be paying you. So they made him king for a while. So at one time, that were these so-called Jews, which Christ was always calling them hypocrites, which actors, bad actors, and that they were teaching the commandments of men, which were the rabbinical additions to the law of God. And Christ said, "Don't just take on the law of God to begin with," but along the way, 613 other ordinances were added to it. So Israel, by that time, was long gone. And if you don't think Israel could have gotten up into Europe in about maybe 100, 150 years, the Syrians, 300,000 of them, just marched up there in about 90 days. Anyway, if you believe it, do, and it'll clear up a lot of misconceptions. And if you don't, then that's fine too. Then you're going to be as confused as everyone else of who you are, who they think they are, and who these Jews. I dated. I've been to Israel 3 times. I dated 3 Jewish ladies. One was from Morocco, and the other was from what's that country that doesn't exist anymore? And they were from Eastern Europe, of course. One Russian lady, Vladislavia, and she was a travel agent, so she would arrange travel for Jewish people out of Russia. And the Russians would, if they wanted to leave, hey, get out. I would care less. So the Russians lost at that time a lot of scientists because the Russians are no dummies. As a matter of fact, if you're a real Anglo-Israelite and you wonder where the church was sent, Christ himself says, don't go to the cities of the Samaritans or the cities of the Gentiles. Go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Now, it's there in the scriptures, and if you don't care to want to hear it, so we, of course, had the Latin Church, which Paul had a lot to do with starting that up, and you know how damn corrupt that got to be. It still is. Catholic Church has killed more Christians than any of the other nations. Anyway, the other Israelites, of course, had gone up to Eastern Europe and some into Russia. And plus they're not Slavic. If you do any kind of a history at all, you know that the Vikings came down the rivers trading, and they came all the way down to Constantinople. And at one time, the king of Constantinople had a Praetorian Guard that was made up of almost Vikings, all Vikings. And then the Vikings, just a people that would go everywhere. We know they went to England. We know they went down into Spain. In fact, there were some Islamic Vikings. But the Normandy, it's called Normandy because the Vikings came there, and the king made a deal with them. Okay, we'll give you some property down here. Now you keep the other Vikings out. So they said, okay, fine. Anyway, the problem is that these people that wanted to get out of Europe and they wanted to start the they wanted to retake that land. Uh, there were German Protestants there 100 years before any kind of a Jew wanted to return. Anyway, the history is all over YouTube. Just keep looking, and you'll find out that I'm sorry, but the people that are claiming to be Israel, living in Palestine, and they kicked these poor Arabs out and gave them 30 minutes to leave, took over their houses, they killed a couple of the villages, and that's what you're going to be seeing now. The Palestinians have a legitimate bitch, and they're going to make it known. I'm sorry, but the scriptures rather agree that the king of the north is going to try to rescue him, but he's not going to be able to do it because he's going to get messages out of the east and out of the north. That's what it is, and so I love these people. I love their food. But you've got several different kinds of Jews, and you've got the Orthodox, conservative, the Reformed Jews, and there's about 23 other types of Jews, depending where you come from. I've always advised people, don't go back. I've been there. I'll take California. Thank you. As a matter of fact, it's a strange kind of a thing, but if you take Israel and overlay it on top of a map of California, we've got the lake up north, and we've got the Salton Sea, and it's just bigger, but it is Israel. And so when I used to travel and do contracting, I'd find a church, and I'd say, oh, I'm up there at Lake Tahoe, the Sea of Galilee. So if I was on the Nevada side, then I was out of Israel, but Northern California, where they grow all the pot and stuff, I have a good time up there. That's Galilee. That's the area of Galilee. Very interesting kind of a thing. I'll take it off with a little bit of a smile. But I'm sorry, what I've told people, tell the Jews to get out, come on back to Hollywood, to California, Dallas, Texas, where the real oil is, and come on back in again, take over the motion picture industry, and then you'll have you're safer here with us. And I think America is Manasseh, and I think England is Ephraim. And both of us have had an empire that doesn't exist any longer. And it's interesting, but my word is as good as anybody else's. Anyway, unfortunately, the Jews that think they're Jews, and don't forget, when the Jews were dispersed in 70 A.D., God had the Romans damn near annihilate them and then sent them packing. So they did. A lot of Jews went up into Russia, and there was another empire up there where the Khan, that's where they get the word Kaiser. The Khan was figuring out, well, our people need a religion too. So he talked to the Christians, and they said, no, we don't want the Christians. They won't let us murder anybody. And so they talked to the Catholics, and he said, no, you can't have the Catholics either. So they talked to Islam. No, Islam you can't drink. That's no good. And then they finally settled on that, well, we'll talk to the Jews. And the Jews had a pretty good deal because once a year, the Yom Kippur, you can disavow any contract or agreement you'd made with a Gentile. And you don't have to, you can't, Jews are not supposed to charge interest to each other, but they sure as hell do. But they can charge interest to a Gentile. And that's the way, when they weren't allowed to do much else, and they said, well, we'll form a banking, coin exchange. That's a very short kind of a thing, but unfortunately, America's going to have problems in the latter days, and you don't see America existing when the Lord returns. It won't be here. Isaiah 18 describes a empire where they sent their ambassadors by water drinking ships with parchment to these foreign lands to make agreements, and that's what America's always had to do. We've had a sea on one side, a sea on the other side, until you also see that this empire had buzzing wings in the sky. Now, who's had more buzzing wings than any other country in the world? Who has made all these wonderful discoveries, everything from elevators and aircraft, when other countries didn't? So God blessed us, but it wasn't because of something that we did. It was more or less because of promises that were made through Jacob and Isaac and Abraham. Abraham didn't, he sent his sons, Ebenezer and Ishmael. He gave them gifts and told them, I want you guys separated because I don't want you arguing over the gifts that I'm going to be giving Jacob. So he said, you can go to the east, but you're going to have certain proclivities that are not nice, and these proclivities are showing up today. So real Israel, Christian Israel, we were gifted with the real plan of what God is going to do, redemption. And the other people were cursed by their prophet. And God, study that sometime if you want to see craziness. Anyway, just rest assured that if you're a Christian, no, we don't have feet that run to war. I'm sorry, our day is over, and stay close to Christ. He will show you what to do, and he'll show you what to say, and study his parables, because they asked him one time, why are you talking to them in parables? And he says, it's not for them to know. How much plainer can you be? So if you're a Christian, you watch the apostles, you read what Christ had to say, ask God that you have that information, you can figure it out through the Spirit of God, and you're going to be a lot more comfortable than if you try to figure out to listen to these gurus about what's going to happen here, what's going to happen there. The main idea is that you're living in Israel now. If you're an American, you're going to beat feet out into the country. Islam is going to be right on your ass. So prepare, but stay close to the Word of God. That's right. That's enough for today, and I'll talk to you later next time. Michael, the Wandering Israelite. Talk to you later. Come on.
Okay.